Hey Cake Fam, Bianca from Belle Taught here, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to apply your edible images onto fondant so that you can put them onto the cakes. I get this question a lot actually, and it's very, very simple. I have got my edible image sheet. I've just got this printed from my local cake supply shop, and I've got a craft scalpel. This one is Loyal brand, and it comes with a few different, like a few replacement blades. Now I'm using a scalpel. You could, if you have a simple image, you can probably just cut them out with just plain scissors. I use the scalpel so I can get really close to the edges and get around these sort of detailed bits around the top here. The checkerboard I'm putting around the bottom of the cake, so I don't want that to go hard on the fondant. I'm actually just going to put that on some black and wrap it around the cake as I decorate it a little bit later. But starting with this, this car, I want it to go on top of the cake, so I want the fondant to be hard. And I don't want to wait 24 hours for it to dry. So this method is really, really handy. So I'm going to cut out around the shape, and I'm leaving about 2 or so millimeters around the actual image. I really like this look. It's up to you. Some people cut right to the image line, but I like a little bit of white around the outside. Depends on what sort of look you're going for, I think, as well. I think having a white border around the whole thing does give you some forgiveness, I guess, when you are getting really detailed and thin images, something like a cat that has whiskers. You're not going to sit there and cut around like a tiny little line. You're going to sort of do like a couple of mils around that line, so you've got the whiskers still on the actual image. So again, it's up to you. So cutting this out, I've left the edible image sheet on the plastic. It is actually just sort of coming off right now, but that's fine. A rubber mat underneath is usually a good idea. I've just got a stainless steel table that I just do this straight onto, which doesn't bother me. So I have cut out my image just like that. So you see what I mean by the little black thing here? If I were to go around this whole image and cut it around the actual image itself, I would have to go in really, really tight around this little black steering wheel, and it would probably just break off. So I prefer just to have a little bit of forgiveness in the thing. I will actually kind of cut a little bit of white through here as well though, just because that's a bit thicker on that end, and I can. All right, you can also finish this off and neaten it up once we have finished with it. So I'm not too fussed. All right, so put that aside for now. And we're gonna get our fondant started. So I usually just do white fondant depending on the cake and the theme and things like that. I use gum paste, and I am a satin ice girly. I don't really love some of the fondant that's on the market at the moment, although they all do work in this method. I tend to stick to satin ice if I can find it. It is an American product, I think, and it is sometimes hard to come across. Yeah, made in the USA. It's imported by Roberts, actually, which is interesting. Didn't know that. Spotlight usually have it. Cakers Warehouse used to have it. A few places used to have it and stopped importing it. Obviously now with the USA stuff going on, I don't know if I'm ever going to get it again. So we use it sparingly. Anyway, but gum paste is ideal. Fondant is fine, but gum paste ideally. Little rolling pin here that's obviously been in the bottom of my decorating bin. And I'm just rolling it out. So I want it to be quite thick so that it's about that thick, right? so that one, it can stand up by itself, and two, I can also put some toothpicks in it because I want it to be standing up straight on top of the cake. So that is big enough for my car to go on. So I'm just going to get a little bit of water and a nice big brush. This is a Sweet Sticks paintbrush number 5 there. And I want like not a lot of water. I've just got some water here. Sort of not dripping wet, and just really light coat of water. And I want to make sure that there are no dry bits. I want the whole thing to be wet, tacky, but not dripping wet, if that makes sense. And I can sort of see with the light and the shimmer on it that most of that is covered. And then put this straight on. Now be very, very careful when you are placing this on that you don't put your hands on the wet surface and then back onto the image, because it will ruin the image. So I'm making sure that I'm using different fingers to press the image into the fondant. All right. Now using my scalpel, I'm just going to cut away. You don't have to cut away much of the fondant at the moment because it's going to go into the oven. But I'm just going to cut away where I want to put the toothpicks in. Okay. So you can see I've pressed the image into the fondant and I'm going to put my toothpicks into here. So I've just cut the fondant to the bottom of the wheels there. And then making sure my hands are very, very, very dry, I'm just going to press a toothpick into the fondant, and careful not to poke a hole into the image itself, which I have absolutely done in the past. Okay. All right. So this is where we are at. Now, leaving that on the baking paper. And then I'm going to put it straight onto a baking tray. Like so. And I'm actually going to, no, I'm not today. I'm going to leave it this way actually. So I'm going to pop this into a oven. Don't freak out because it will be okay. I'm going to put it into the oven. My oven is on the lower setting, so like 50 degrees, I think it is. Like warm, but not hot, cooking hot kind of thing. Put this into the oven for about 10 minutes and the fondant will basically, the moisture from the fondant will absorb and it will go hard instead of waiting 24 hours for this to dry and so that it's hard enough to put on top of the cake. I usually do mine top up. I'm a bit sticky on these other bits. I could cut them off and I could actually flip it upside down. It doesn't really matter. I've had success with both. The issue is that if your oven is too hot, which is, you know, sometimes if it gets to about 60 degrees, it can be a problem. So keep it as low as possible. But if it does get too hot, sometimes the sides can curl up and the image can get a little bit wavy. I normally check mine about 5 minutes in and then flip it over so that the finishing product is a flat image, and then let it cool, let it dry, and then it should be absolutely basically rock hard to put on top of your cake. So I'm going to go do that now and I'll come back and we can see how hard it gets. All right, so our car topper has come out of the oven and you can see that that is just going to stand up by itself. Right, so the fondant is basically hard. I'm going to use the scalpel just to go around and cut away the fondant from underneath the image, making sure my hands are very, very clean. And I'm sort of got my scalpel on like a bit of an angle so that I'm sort of going backwards from like on an angle away down from the image, if that makes sense. So chopping this way, not this way, so that there's no fondant that can be seen from the front of the image, if possible. And you can sort of do this layer by layer as well if you're not confident in just taking chunks out of it. And also making sure that you are very careful around the actual image itself, because now that the moisture has been brought out of it, it's very brittle. So it will just sort of crack and crumble off if you play around with it too much. Hands are very shaky today. All right. Okay, nearly there. So obviously the toothpicks are very much secure in the image. They end up going nowhere. And that's going to hold it all up for us on the cake itself. Now I'm getting into this middle bit. Being careful around that little driver's wheel. All right, so now I've exposed these edges, right? And there is a little bit of moisture still in these edges. You could put it back in the oven if you wanted to, just to really dry it out, but that is basically done. So I'm gonna chuck him on, I think we were going this way, to my cake. Cute. How adorable is that? So cute. Let me get you in the center, my friend. Do I want to put a little road at the top? You can't see it anyway, so. I'm obsessed with these flags. Look how cute they are. So cute.